All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about a core concept in American government that you see in pretty much every crime show, but it's one that gets misunderstood all the time. I'm talking about jurisdiction. It's really all about a simple question: who has the power to enforce the law and where?
It seems pretty intuitive, right? You think of a local sheriff and you picture them patrolling a county. A city cop has authority inside the city limits. A governor is in charge of a state. It really feels like power is all about drawing lines on a map, creating these neat, tidy little boxes of authority.
And what's interesting is if you actually go digging around in the Constitution, you find something that seems to prove this exact idea. It's this really fascinating and very specific piece of text. So, this is what's known as the Enclave Clause from Article 1. It's the whole legal basis for Washington, D.C. And when you first read it, it looks exactly like what we were just talking about. I mean, it's a clear territorial box for federal power, literally spelled out as a 10-mile square. It is so easy to look at that and think, aha, I get it. You see this very specific, geographically defined power, and it feels like you've just found the blueprint for all federal authority. It's just a bigger box on the map, right? Well, here's the twist, and it is a big one. That is not the rule. Actually, it's pretty much the exact opposite of the rule. And this is the point that changes everything. That 10 miles square clause for DC, it's a unique, one-of-a-kind special case. It was basically created because the federal government needed its own turf, a place to operate without state interference. It was never meant to be a template for how federal power works anywhere else in the country. So if federal jurisdiction isn't just about drawing a bigger box on the map, then what is it? And that question gets us to this fundamental difference between two types of power, one that's defined by walls and another that's defined by rules. And this chart just lays it out perfectly. On the one side, you've got county jurisdiction. Think of it as being intramural. It exists inside the walls. A sheriff's power literally hits a wall at the county line. But then you look at federal jurisdiction. It's not territorial. It's what we call sovereign. Its limits aren't about geography, they're about the subject of the law itself. This brings us to the absolute key legal concept here: subject matter jurisdiction. This is really the heart of federal power. The question for a federal agent isn't where a crime happened, but what kind of crime was it? Was it a federal crime, like bank robbery or wire fraud? If the answer is yes, then federal jurisdiction kicks in, and it doesn't matter what county or state lines were crossed. And you see, legal scholars really drive this point home. Federal power doesn't come from owning a plot of land. It comes from the authority of the United States as a sovereign nation. It's just a fundamentally different kind of power than what a local sheriff has. Okay, so let's see how this actually plays out. Let's imagine a classic chase scene, and we'll compare the sheriff, whose power is based on those walls, with a federal agent, whose power is based on the rules. So picture this. A bank gets robbed in County A. That's a federal crime. The suspect takes off, speeding across the county line into County B. Now, for the County A sheriff, this is a huge headache. Their authority suddenly gets legally fuzzy because they're outside of their territory. But for the FBI agent on the case, it doesn't matter one bit. The crime was a federal offense, their jurisdiction is tied to that law, and it follows that suspect wherever they go inside the United States. And the real-world consequences of this idea are absolutely massive. This is why a federal arrest warrant is valid from coast to coast. It's why a federal agency, say the EPA, can set regulations that apply just the same in California as they do in Maine. Federal power isn't another box on the map. It's more like an overlay that covers the entire map, but it only applies to specific things defined in the Constitution. So let's kind of boil this all down. What we've really been looking at is a deep structural asymmetry in American government. It's a kind of hierarchy of power. It all starts at the most local level, with the counties. Their power, you can think of it as existing only within physical walls. It's purely territorial, the most geographically limited power there is. Okay, so move up one level and you get to the states. They are also territorial, their laws apply strictly within their borders. But, and this is the key difference, they are sovereign within that territory. And that sovereignty gives them a way bigger scope of power than a county. And then, finally, you get to the top, the federal government. And its power just breaks that territorial mold completely. It's not defined by lines on a map, it's defined by the sovereignty of the nation itself. Its authority is limited only by the subject of the law, and because of that, it spans the entire country. And this all leads to a really big final thought for today. This whole system, this way of thinking, was designed for a physical world of maps and borders. But what happens when the crime is a cyber attack launched from halfway across the world, or a financial deal that only exists in the cloud? As our world becomes less and less about physical place, how does this foundational idea of subject matter jurisdiction have to adapt and evolve? That is the big question for the world we live in now.